With the upcoming sister location game on its way, I thought I would use the first episode of Reading Into to talk about the FNAF book, since it was the last piece of the puzzle we actually got. The last one that wasn't insane anyway. Having said that, think of this book as a remake of the first 4 games, otherwise your head is going to explode trying to fit into canon. In fact, this book might be new canon, but we'll see what Scott says in later months. But that's not what I'm here to discuss. I'm here to answer the question, is this book any good? Let's find out. Now the very first thing you'll notice is that the formatting is a little off. That's because Amazon themselves publish, so I'll give it a pass, and it takes a little bit to get used to, but it's absolutely fine, don't worry. Nothing book-breaking. What's our story? Charlie, the daughter of one of the founders of Fazbear's Restaurant, and her friends are back in town 10 years after the murders to honour one of their childhood friends. Spurred on by curiosity, since we wouldn't have a book otherwise, the gang go back to the diner, which is now located in the ruins of a mall which they built around it. Why didn't they just knock down the diner? Because A, we wouldn't have a book, and B, it holds a memory of a town that nobody really wants to go near. They just want to kind of leave it alone, so they built around it instead. Okay. After a few trips, Carlton, the one member of the gang who did stay in town, is taken, and the group alone must go back to the diner and get him back, since nobody actually believes him about being attacked by a rabbit. I'll come back to that later. Meanwhile, Charlie must dig up the past again to not only solve the murders from 10 years ago, but her father's suicide and her own brother's murder as well. I did say it was a remake of the first 4 games, so it does have quite a bit to put in there. How are the characters? Charlie has an odd optimism about her that actually blocks out the bad memories. She owns 3 animatronics that her father custom made for her, but amount to absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things, which is a little disappointing in hindsight, but not something that cost the book any points to me. It's kind of more of just a character building thing and a glimpse into what her life was like at that point. Her friends are okay. John has a sort of good-hearted prankster grown-up thing. You feel like his arc was completed before the story began. He'll be our semi-love interest thing. I was a little disappointed that Charlie says she was a childhood crush in a way, mostly because of how often that element is used in stories. It doesn't ruin the character, but it's just something that came to mind. Carlton is a past nerd. He has confidence now, but his past shows from time to time. Jessica is... Jessica. She honestly didn't leave much of an impact with me, apart from she's a bit chipper. The gang are like the 4 animatronics. Bear with me. John is Freddy because he has the most charisma. Charlie is Foxy because she starts outside the group. Her 3 friends that we are first introduced to are already in a restaurant in the town where she comes in. Plus, she's actually met Foxy at a young age. See, she met the end of the skeleton in the shed. It was a workshop of her father's, and she couldn't get away from the silver eyes. Which brings us to Chica. Chica's equivalent would be Jessica, because they're both utterly forgettable. And of course, Carlton is Bonnie, because they have a kind of underdog feel to them. I really hope that makes sense to anyone. The first scene of them actually in the diner shows off some great character moments. My faves being John's disappointment at not feeling the same way as the others about returning to the old place, since everybody seemed to be having a nostalgia trip at that time and going a little bit blue-hoot crazy. Plus, Charlie's memories of her dad's office are... how do I put this? Feels! Despite our main cast only being 17, the dialogue doesn't come off as angsty. It comes off as natural, blurring the lines between adult and teen. Thank you, Scott. Now you may be wondering, if it's night when they go to the diner, how come the animatronics don't do anything? Apart from it being too early on in the story? Considering it's dark when they go in, I'm going to assume it's before midnight, so they're in the we're okay mode. Later, Charlie and John in one of their bonding moments that happen throughout the book, which I really wish he had more of those moments with everyone else to give them a bit more character development. Anyway, she and John find the original diner, so our prequel diner that just had Golden Bonnie and Golden Freddy about the place. How, you may ask? Because Charlie begins to remember fragments of the place despite being only 3 years old. I really hate this thing in fiction where characters can just remember things from a young age. I mean, ask yourself, what do you remember from being 3 years old? I know it's fragments and she does remember over time, but it's still a little bit clear for my liking. Like, more like she's seen a picture of it. She actually visits what used to be the diner and remembers she had a twin called Sammy, who was the original victim of the book's purple guy. Her dad never mentioned him when they moved to Hurricane, so she thought it may have been an imaginary friend. As I said, Carlton gets kidnapped by the book's purple guy, who goes by Dave! That name brings me so much amusement. Dave puts on the golden Bonnie suit and knocks Carlton out, being witnessed by Jason, so naturally when they get to a cop, Jason blurts out that Bonnie took Carlton. Which really doesn't help things. When Carlton awakens, he realises something truly horrifying. Dave is shirtless. Calm, fangirls. The fight is on in the last third of the book to get back into Freddy's, find Carlton, and discover the truth of what happened 10 years ago. No character comes off as lesser to me, not even Dune the cop. I'll come back to him. The whole book feels like an 80s horror film, and it's so refreshing to have some connectable cannon fodder for a change. The animatronics we all know and fear come to life in the last third, but the supernatural elements are scattered throughout the book, so the book doesn't change genre in the last third, so no worries there. Dave is what we always thought the purple guy would act like. Creepy, deranged, and just as horrifying as the animatronics we know. The animatronics have gone from jump scares, which are a very cheap form of horror by the way, to genuine suspense. I'd argue they work way better in the book than they do in any of the games. It feels more personal, to be honest. When there's a scene with them and any of our 7 potential victims, you cannot take your eyes off the page. You need to know if they make it or not. Plus, Charlie electrocutes Chica in a moment of pure badass. That's always fun. Foxy gets the most time spent on him, while Chica gets the least. I'm sorry, really creepy Chica fans. You won't get to see your waifu much outside of group moments. Another thing to note, while there are bits of romantic tension, nobody becomes a couple after this, which I am very thankful for. Scott didn't fall into the trap of people getting together because of a tragedy. Spoiler section. This is the part of the review where I talk about stuff you may want to discover for yourself. If you're still curious, continue on. Dave is actually William Afton, the man who co-founded the diners and wore the golden Bonnie suit in the early days to entertain. The cops knew it was him, but without the bodies couldn't prove anything. Charlie actually has to do some research into this beforehand, so the only monologue we get is just why Dave does it in the first place. Yes, I'm still going to call him Dave. He wants them to play forever. I should mention that throughout the last third of the book, Dave has the Springtrap suit on him, only speaking to the others when he has the head on him as well. Golden Freddy is there and just as lifeless as the games. Sort of. The look is the same, but is actually possessed by Michael, and helps Carlton by telling him where the missing children are, and stopping the animatronics when the group are cornered by all of them. Why is Golden Freddy special? Why is he not trying to kill the group like all the other animatronics? Apart from narrative convenience? I think it's because Golden Freddy was the suit that Charlie's dad used to wear, so there's an echo of him in it, trying to keep Michael sane and not kill everybody. That's the only theory I've got. If it's not that, then I think I found a plot hole. Henry, Charlie's dad, used an animatronic to commit suicide. Sorry, game theory, but given its description, which I will show on screen, I do not think it's Baby. Baby would be a clearer image to Charlie. It's closer to maybe a prototype of puppet like the one we've seen in Sister Location, but again, that's not quite right. Personally, I think it's a brand new one that he's trying to introduce. I dub it Proto. Something very strange about the book that you'll only notice in hindsight is the amount of deaths. 2. Dune the cop, who I swear seemed to be written just so he could be killed later. Seriously, he has 2 scenes, where he's introduced and where he's dead. And Dave himself, when Charlie forces the spring lock suits to activate, in another moment of absolute badass. She does this in front of the chief of police, but no worries, she doesn't go to jail, even though I'm pretty sure that's what would happen. I know it's a killer she murdered, but it's still a murder. Despite the gang going through hell and there being 7 potential victims, okay, 6 considering Jason's a child, nobody dies. At all. Hell, Carlton gets a concussion, that should be easy pickings, but nope. And in fact, Dune was killed by Dave. So the animatronics that gave us so much trouble in the games get no kills. They really need to practice more. Final thoughts on Five Nights at Freddy's Silver Eyes? Well, for one thing, it really shouldn't be called Five Nights at Freddy's. More, Five Nights in Hurricane, considering that's where it takes place. I don't think they're in there for 5 nights. But other than that, it's an enjoyable read, and you can actually separate it from the games very easily. You don't need to know the games to know the story, and there's absolutely no nods to the games, so you don't need to get those by playing the games. For those of you who have played the games, just separate this, and you'll be fine. It will make sense. I found it an enjoyable read. Little plot holes aside, Thank you for joining me for my first episode of Reading Into. I shall see you next time.